but tonight I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome. And I don't know about you, but years ago, I'd never heard of imposter syndrome. I thought it was just a new thing that's come up recently, but it's not. It's actually been about since 1978. But it's more of a thing now, and people are much more aware of it. So what is it? It's when people doubt their own abilities and they fear that they're going to get found out, that somebody will work out that they're a phony, that they don't know what they think they know or meant to know, and they live in this constant fear that somebody will find them out. Now, we all live with imposter syndrome at some point or other. Maybe we start a new job and we're convinced that even though they did and we are not capable of doing that job, or maybe get a promotion, or you're doing something different and you've got that initial fear that I can't do this, I'm going to get caught out. But most of us go over it, but for some people it just lasts their entire life. But there's things that we can do to try and mitigate it. So what does a person with imposter syndrome do? Well, they've got this fear, as I said, of being found out, but they also have a problem internalizing their successes. So they find it difficult to acknowledge to themselves even what they're good at and what they can do. And there's just constant anxiety around every single thing that you do and whether or not you're actually good at it. So what would this show? You might do a couple of menial tasks because you don't want to stretch yourself in case you make a mess of the ones that you know that you're doing and you're doing okay. Or it might be that you set goals and then you achieve the goals, but then you won't admit that you've done that under your own skills. It'll be something else that has actually caused you to do it. So, for example, it was luck, sheer luck that it turned out in the night. I didn't know I could do it. It could be that when things go wrong, it's their fault as well. So it works the other way. So for example, if you were a salesperson and you had sales targets, and at the moment, nobody's making sales targets because of COVID, it's just not happening. But if you've got imposter syndrome, that's your fault. You would believe that there's something else that you could do. I could have done this. I should have contacted more people. I should have. When everybody on the planet knows that actually it's COVID that's been the problem. So what we tend to do is stay in jobs and roles that we're comfortable with, and we won't go out of that comfort zone because we don't believe that we can do any better. We think that's all that we can do. We think that's all that we deserve. We think that's all that we're entitled to. So we just accept it and never try to do anything different. And sometimes people with imposter syndrome will set ludicrous goals, absolutely extremely challenging, extremely difficult, but then they get difficult when they don't achieve it. And you know, if you were talking to anyone, you say, if somebody told you they wanted, well, like me, if somebody said I was going to go out and run a marathon tomorrow, that would be the most ludicrous thing on the planet. Considering I can't even run, never mind do anything else. But I would be really disappointed if I had imposter syndrome and I didn't go out and run a marathon tomorrow. But it's just been a totally ridiculous goal that they've set. And there's this fear of not being good enough can really lead to health complications. It can affect their mental health. It can give people anxiety. It can lead to depression, certainly frustration, total lack of confidence, and in some instances, even shame, because they're ashamed of what they've done or what they've not been able to do. And most of us, when we experience self-doubt, we get over it, you know, and self-doubt's normal, because if we didn't have a doubt in what we could achieve, we would never strive to be better. We would always just stay the way that we are. So a little bit of self-doubt is good, but when you do it to the extent of imposter syndrome, it's when it becomes really bad and can really affect your health. And although that's the case, and although it can have serious impact on your mental health, it's not defined as a mental health condition. Experts will say, no, it's not, and it's just something that's in your own mind and that you need to deal with. And the reason they say that is because there's no credibility to it. If you go through an interview process and get offered a job, everybody knows that you were the best person for that job, except you. Because imposter syndrome makes you're not rational about your own abilities. So it's not deemed to be important enough. And there's no cures, but there's things that we can do to make it easier. Okay, so how do you know if you've got imposter syndrome to start with? So do you agonize over even the smallest mistakes? The slightest flaw in your work? So things, and there's this teeny little flaw in it. Do you really give yourself a hard time about that? If there's a comma missing, do you really freak out about it? Because that's what you do. Do you contribute your success to luck or external factors? Are you really sensitive to criticism, even constructive criticism? Because if you suffer from imposter syndrome, then criticism's criticism, irrespective of whether it's constructive or not. It's a slight, it means you weren't good enough, and so folk are critiquing you. And do you downplay your expertise? Even if you're more skilled than others? Do you say, well, actually, I don't know much about it, but I'll give it a go, or I'll have a look at it? Where everybody goes, oh, you're the guru, you know, if you want to know about tech, speak to this person because they're the best. And going, oh, I don't know that much, but I'll help you out, when everybody knows they're a genius. Things start to resonate with you, then maybe you've got imposter syndrome. And there's different types of imposter syndrome. There is an author called Dr. Valerie Young. She came up with 5 different types of imposter syndrome. And it just describes different types of people. And you might find some of this resonates. So there's the expert. And an expert won't feel good about finishing a task until they feel they know absolutely everything about that subject. So they will research it, and they'll do more research, and they'll try different things, and they'll read articles, and they'll go back and do more research. And the problem at the end of the day is they don't necessarily get the task done because they feel they don't know everything there is to know about it. And they just need to keep learning and keep learning. So it's hard to finish stuff. Then there's the perfectionist, when everything has to be 101% perfect. And that's impossible, because nothing can be 101%. It's 100% or nothing. But perfectionists will focus on all of the areas where they could better. So they'll set themselves crazy goals, and then they'll critique everything that wasn't done properly and that wasn't done correctly. And we all do that to a certain extent. You know, things like this, I'll go away later and say, oh, I never said that, or I forgot about this, but I won't beat myself up about it. But if you're a perfectionist, you do. And they would rather focus on what they could have done better than celebrate the brilliant job that they've done with whatever it is that they were planning to do. And then, this isn't me. I know a couple of folk like this, but this isn't me. Natural geniuses. And these are the folk that, actually, if I'm being honest, they're the people that I hate, because it doesn't matter what they do, they pick it up, they learn it really quickly, they're really good at it. And it's, they're just great at everything. But these people feel ashamed and weak when they come up against a goal that they suddenly find hard. And that's because everything they've done has come to them very, very easily. Suppose a way of looking at it is like, if you've got kids and they get too much and you say they'll never learn the value of money, or they'll never learn because everything comes to them too easily. And that can happen to geniuses in terms of imposter syndrome, because when all of a sudden it takes more effort to do something, then they take that really, really hard because it should be easy. The next one is the soloist. And the soloist does what it says in the tin. These people prefer to be on their own because they think asking for help is a sign of weakness. They think that asking for help means that they don't actually know everything that there is to know, that they're lacking in some way. So they will not ask for help. And even if you ask if you can help them, they'll say, no, I'm fine, because they're trying to prove their self-worth and how valuable and how good they are themselves, rather than, yeah, I could do with a hand here, or I don't understand this. Soloists will battle it out no matter what. They'll try and work it out on their own. And then there's the superheroes. And the superheroes, what I would normally call a workaholic. The people that are in there from the crack of dawn to last thing at night, 7 days a week. Every time you turn around, they're at their desk, they're working. They're just there constantly. And for them, they're doing that to prove that they can do everything that they're meant to be doing. So it's this fear again of feeling like, I can't do this. They might think I'm not good at my job. They might find out I don't know anything. So I just need to keep working, and I keep working. And all of that does is it ends up with physical and mental burnout. And it's back to this, somebody's going to find out. What will I do if they find out? So how do we get imposter syndrome? Well, as I said earlier, we can all get it, and we all do get it at times. But there's some things that can increase the likelihood of you getting it. So, as I said earlier, a new job or a new promotion. And sometimes you can just feel, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And we've all been in that new job where you sit there and think, I don't know anything. And it's not that you don't know it, it's that you don't know the way the new company particularly does stuff. But the knowledge is there and you'll pick it up. So that's okay, that's normal, that's healthy, that's what we would expect. But sometimes imposter syndrome comes from your family. If you've grown up with a brother or sister who is super gifted, great at everything they do, absolutely amazing, and you're always the one that's the thickle, they know everything and I don't know anything. And we've all been there. I mean, I do. I've got a husband. Yep, my husband and daughter are both incredibly smart people, And by comparison, I'm the dumb one, absolutely. But that depends on how you judge dumb. But it's very easy to say I'm really stupid and I don't know anything, therefore I've got to work extra hard. It's not. I just know different things from them, including things like my passion for soaps and stuff like that. But I'd rather talk about that than talk about the stars or dinosaurs or any of the other stuff that they know all about. But we're different and we all know different things. It doesn't mean we're stupid, but that inferiority complex can start imposter syndrome because you want to be as bright as everybody else. There's also suggestion that marginalized population groups, some people from ethnic groups can develop more imposter syndrome than other groups of people. And part of that could be down to discrimination because they're discriminated against in other aspects of their life, that they also apply that to their working environment as well. And if you tend to suffer from depression and anxiety generally, then it's more likely to continue and become imposter syndrome, because again, it'll just overspill into all the areas of your life. So, okay, now that I've totally depressed you and you realize all of the things that are wrong with you because you've suddenly thought, oh, that's me, oh, I do this. There is hope, there is stuff that you can do to get around it. So the first thing that you need to do is to recognize that thoughts aren't facts. So just because you think something doesn't mean that it's true. Our subconscious mind takes everything in, absolutely everything, and it can't differentiate whether it's true or it's not true. It just takes it all. So what you need to do is to start engaging with, when you have a thought, do I want to listen to that or do I not? The obvious kind of thing is you might be sitting in a meeting and all of a sudden you think, I need the loo. But you know you've got an hour to sit there, so you switch that thought off. I won't think about it. I'll carry on doing what I'm doing, so that'll be okay. And it does. So you do that and you look for the truth in your thoughts. So is a thought true? Am I thick? No, I'm not thick. I just don't know everything everybody else knows, but I know different things. So it's recognizing what is true. And once you start recognizing what's true, then that can take away a lot of the power from what you're thinking. So think about, do I want to believe this thought? Do I not want to believe this thought? And then take action, because the actions, if you're doing something, then you're not thinking, because you do things automatically. So what can you do? Well, you can talk about it. And one of the things people with imposter syndrome do is they don't talk about it, because that could be letting in that feeling that I'm not, somebody will find out I'm not as good as I thought it was. So talk about it. Talk to a colleague, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, talk to someone that's maybe just an acquaintance who can put a different perspective on it, who can bring a more realistic view to whatever's going on in your head. Sometimes getting together with a group of other people who suffer from imposter syndrome is a good way, because that way it's not just you, that there's other people out there that are going through the same things. And if it gets really bad, then obviously there's professionals out there that you can do. Actually being aware of the symptoms and the stuff that I've talked about for imposter syndrome is good, because if you can spot the symptoms, then you can start and think, what can I do about it? And remember some of the positive things that you can do. something else, you just accept that nothing in this world is perfect. Even the most perfect of people aren't perfect. You know, everybody's got something going on in their lives, even if they look that they've got money, they've got looks, they've got, you know, the famous husband, it looks brilliant, but there'll always be something there that means that it's not perfect. And once you start accepting that nothing's ever perfect, then that takes some of the pressure off. And, you know, when things go wrong, it's a learning curve. You can take it up to experience. Okay, I made a mess of that. I won't do it again. So you can learn by it as well. And as I said, swapping negative thoughts for positive thoughts. So instead of thinking, I can't do this, I'm never going to get this finished in time, what am I going to do? Wait a minute, if I ask for somebody's help, I might get through it. Or you can celebrate something that you're really good at, something that you've achieved recently. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you've been doing some sort of challenge and you've got 50 or 60% of the way through it. Celebrate that because it's an achievement. Recall things that you've done in the past that have been good, that have been worth celebrating. And keep a record of all of the positive feedback that you get from other people. And one thing that comes out of imposter syndrome is people with imposter syndrome can't take compliments any more than they can take criticism, because they don't believe that they're worthy of those compliments. So if you write these things down, the nice things that people have said, and even the things that people have said and the things that you've learned for making mistakes, then you can go back and check it out. And you'll realize that, or hopefully realize, that people want to help. You don't need to do everything on your own. And that's one of the things with imposter syndrome, is that people believe that they need to do things on their own abilities all of the time. And we don't, you know, and the whole small is powerful in terms of small groups is a great testament to that, because, you know, together we're stronger than we are when we're on our own. No matter how good we are when we're on our own, we're much better and we're much stronger when we're with others. So that was a rattle, and I've rattled through it deliberately because I want to give you the time to answer questions, and we've got about 5 minutes left. So if anyone's got questions or anything you want me to go over again, then do it. Feel free, and I will do my best to answer them. Imposter syndrome doesn't just refer to work, and I know I've spoken a lot about, you know, in work and what you're doing in work, but it can give rise in other things, in other groups that you're part of. Maybe if you're part of a church and there's organizations going on in the church, or you're part of book clubs. I know I've been in book clubs before where I think, how did they get that out of that book? You know, above my head, don't understand where they get that from. Or you'll hear folk in telly saying things and I'll think, what? Don't get that. One of the obvious ones that I've had about this recently is if you read about complaints that have been made into television and the things that people are complaining about, and I sit and stare at it and think, I've missed that. You know, where did that come from? So it can appear in all areas of our lives. It's just being conscious of it and speaking about it. You know, the big trouble that we all have especially women have, is that we don't talk about things. You know, we tend to think we've got to stick to it ourselves and not do anything. So yeah, it's much better to be able to talk about it with anyone at any point in time. And I'm always available for a coffee, virtual coffees, anytime. But I mean, if you want help, you want support, then give me a shout. I'll happily answer your questions and take half an hour and sit down and go through it. I've also said to Pam, I'm happy to open up. I run a group that I'm also happy for anyone that's interested to get. I will give 6-month membership to anyone that's interested in it. And we cover stuff like this. We talk about confidence. We talk about anything and everything. But I do training specifically on things like this as well. So if it's something that you're interested in, my details, I think Pam had a link, but we can use the, if you want to, in this group, Anne's obviously there, you can give Anne, send them to Pam, and you know, they can pass.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Joyce, sorry. No,
sorry.
You go.
No, I beg your pardon, Emily. I was going to say, I think I've got your website, Joyce. I could put it in the chat for people to maybe look it up. Is that helpful?
Please. Yes, please.
Yeah, but if you do it through the website, it'll ask for payment. So if you if you got my email address,
I can look it up, Joyce.
Yeah, if we do it through, if you send me an email, it's probably easier because that way I can get you in with bypassing the whole payment system thing.
Right, cool.
So that's probably the easiest way of doing it.
Right, I'll let you guys chat on and I'll look up your email, Joyce, and put it in the chat, okay?
Cheers. So sorry, your questions? We've got about 20 seconds. So thanks for your time, ladies. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Yeah, I've added onto the chat. I'll get the email and share it around everybody. I'll get it from Pam, so apologies I couldn't find it there. But thanks, Joyce.